You're listening to a Bored to Death Herocast, talking superhero anime and other hero fare in easily digestible chunks. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Herocast. I am Jay, being joined by
Sam.
And we are back to continue Season 5 of My Hero Academia with a one-episode binge this week, as opposed to the two-parters that we've done the last two editions. Because this time the match is only going to take place over one episode instead of two.
Yep.
Once the 1A versus 1B arc is finished, we'll just handle it, I guess, on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah.
Again, so we've had three matches of Class 1A versus 1B. We've had a win each
and a draw.
And the draw was literally just a case of neither team was in a position to actually be able to pull out it was more a case of 1B was not in a position where they could easily pull off a win.
Or pull off a win in general.
Yeah, and
this
so
is the best way not to lose.
so she just went for a way for her team to not lose.
Pony.
Yep, Pony just basically forced a draw by taking her teammates as well as one of 1A's students up high out of reach of Ojiro. What was it? The Tenta Arms.
I just call him
Tenta Arms, because he couldn't get high enough, fast enough to be able to stop her, and all of his teammates were either KO'd.
Jiro's right there.
Yeah,
and that's
I said Ojiro.
Is it Ojiro?
Shoji. That's who I was.
I was about to say that didn't sound like
Shoji was basically his tail guy was already in the jail. Ida was trapped under rubble that had been liquefied and then hardened again,
or softened
and then just hardened again on top of him. And she had Shoto in her grasp, unconscious. And so basically forced to draw. So now we've got Team Bakugo, and it's him, Sugar Rush, Sero, and Jiro, the earphone jack. And don't remember off the top of my head who their opponents are, but it's going to be interesting to see how this goes, because it's Bakugo, who doesn't play well with others. It's just sort of like he doesn't pay attention to the plan.
Well, he's not even trying to plan.
Yeah, because he's just like, just stay out of my way, nerds.
Follow me.
Yeah. So this will be a relatively quick binge. In theory, then a relatively short episode. We'll find out how, depending on how much talking we have to do after the fact. But don't think there's really much else to add for this one. The description just says Bakugo shows a different side of himself in the fourth team match as the class battles continue. Maybe this is going to be a case of where we're going to see Bakugo actually, again, proves that he's far smarter than he lets on.
What do you think the outcome's going to be?
The draw in there kind of throws everything into question. I just had a thought. We could have another draw of some sort, so that everything then rests on the final match. With Team Deku versus Team Monomo. Because that's how you do these things when you have this sort of thing. You always end up, they're in a position where the hero team needs the victory in the final confrontation or whatever to give themselves the win. Whether it's a case of they're all tied up, or it's like they're way behind on points, but there's a possibility if they do things.
There's a long shot.
Yeah, there's a long shot, but we could still pull out the win, kind of thing. So,
you're resting on a draw.
I'm guessing we might get a draw, but who knows? This anime likes to throw curveballs every now and then to how I expect the tropes to function.
Which is good. It keeps things fresh. So
Exactly.
You're not like sitting there like, all right. Just like how sometimes after a while the writing in wrestling got to the point of, all right, they're going to get a draw, there's going to be a run-in.
Yeah, it's just like every single time I'm like, okay, so where's the run-in going to happen? And sometimes the run-in doesn't happen, and I'm like, huh.
I'm pleasantly surprised this was a normal match.
Not you, but sometimes it's because like the run-in doesn't happen, but the heel still wins, and I'm just like, no, that's not how this is supposed to go.
This is not how I pictured it. Damn it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think of that as a bad thing, but sometimes I'm just sort of like, you built up this. Sometimes it's like the case of the story was built up in such a way that it's like the face needed the win. It's like this was the guy that was going to overcome and get the big win to finally defeat the heel, and then it's like the hero doesn't win. It's like, so where do you go with the hero now? Or it's like, this was like the best option to defeat the bad guy. Who do you have beat him now?
No one.
Thing. I mean, there's been plenty of those across various promotions that I follow. WWE, there's a bunch of those. Right now, Roman Reigns, in his current tribal chief thing, I'm just like, okay, who do you have him drop the title to, kind of thing. And I mean,
we're getting way off topic now.
Yeah, we are, but yeah, I could talk about wrestling for hours. So rather than that, should be a completely separate podcast that we should do. But a WrestleCast, yeah. But that will go ahead and wrap up this intro. So we'll see you after the episode. Hello, and thanks for listening. While we're binging, please give us a like and subscribe. If you want to reach out, do it via our social media on Facebook or Twitter at BTD_Bingecast. The Bored to Death Clan is part of the CKCC Radio family, including J Bunny's Music Hub, the Race Nerd Podcast, Real Paranormal Talk, Ranking Tracks, Motivational Moves, The A Show, Park Hopper 101, and The Nerd Table. Please consider supporting CKCC Radio on Patreon so we can continue to bring you podcast content. And now, the binge is done, so let's get to the discussion. And we're back. So, definitely wasn't the finish I was expecting. I called a draw, and I was very much wrong.
Were you pleasantly surprised?
I was very pleasantly surprised by that.
Are you becoming a Bakugo fan?
I don't want to be.
I don't want to be either, but God damn it.
But I do like that it's like, yeah, he's still the same jerk that we know, but he's now basically showing that, yeah, there's some maturity developing there.
Kind of.
It's going to take some major event to get him out of his jerk-ass nature. But
I don't think that's just what sets him apart at this point.
Yeah, but at the same time, Endeavor was kind of a jerk himself until he got put in the position of being the number one hero and realizing, shit, I have some.
I wanted to earn it my way, but
not only that, but realizing that as the new number one hero, he needs to be the symbol of peace and all that, and being his usual gruff, get out of my way self isn't going to win him a lot of fans that way. But regardless, Bakugo is actually developing into a team player. Granted, he's a team player in the way of do what I say and we'll make it out of this.
But he did say, "I'll protect you. You just got to make sure you can protect me as well."
And once they saw that, yeah, he was following through on that promise, they followed through. They followed suit.
I mean, I didn't think they wouldn't anyway.
This is true, but they showed much more willing to go along with his plan once he showed, yeah, he actually is caring about his teammates.
How much he screams extras all the time.
Yeah,
he wanted that match to be flawless.
Well, yeah, he basically said that he wanted to, because he is all about standing out from everybody else. It's not just enough for him to win. He needs to win in convincing, overwhelming fashion. And so that's what he said to the team, is just sort of like, I want our victory to be unquestionable. It's going to be a flawless victory, 4-0. Mm-hmm. And in the 1B team, we had Tokage. We knew that she was on it because they put some focus on her in the last episode, or basically said that she's she has a very strong quirk kind of thing.
Strong quirk and intelligent. Like, was planning for things.
And to be fair, they did have a very good plan. They just weren't counting on Bakugo actually working with his team.
Or the way he did. Because they were like, okay, well, let's just trap the whole team and just work on Bakugo.
And instead, Bakugo busted the team out. And then they were like, oh, shit. But they still kept trying to focus too much on him rather than try to get everybody else and remove his support structure. But Tokage, her quirk was called like Lizard Tail Split.
Yeah, it's like a lizard tail splitter.
And basically, like those lizards who can like detach their tails and then regrow them, she can essentially
control it.
Well, not only that, she can break her body apart into multiple components.
Up to 50.
That she can then control. So it's like Pony's horns, but in a much wider spread.
If you really think about it, she's just taking like chunks of meat and flesh and just slapping them on the metal to fuck with Jiro's sound.
Well, we didn't really get a good sense of what else she can really do with that.
But I think we saw her.
It sort of reminds me of Buggy's devil fruit power in One Piece. Because he can like split himself into multiple pieces and control them.
I swear we saw her do something similar. I don't know. I thought she was in the hero exam.
Maybe. It's one of those things we'd have to go back and rewatch to see if we spot her in the background or something. I don't know if she got a whole lot of focus. But there was also Bondo, who has like a glue power. He basically just sprays glue out of his face. Kamakiri, who can like sprout blades from any part of his body. It has a very sort of lizard kind of look to him. You said it. He sort of reminded you of Stain.
Yeah, the way he was talking, the way he was acting. I was like, I don't know.
Maybe a more noble kind of Stain. But and then we had Awase, who we saw him in the summer camp arc.
Yes,
he had the welding power, and he basically carries a bunch of pouches with like steel rods and stuff in them that he then can like use those things to weld stuff together. They laid a trap for Bakugo, and he tried to weld him in place so that he couldn't move. But then Sugar Rush just came in, broke all the stuff with his super strength, and Bakugo was able to race in, and well, then he basically
he went straight at him, and then
suddenly went up. Yeah, just sort of left a smoke screen around Kamakiri for no, it wasn't for Kamakiri. It was for Awase, and Sero and Jiro just got up close and overwhelmed him with her sonic attack. And it was just, that was the story all around. It's just like Bakugo wasn't just trying to take everybody down just by himself. He was, in some cases, setting them up for his team to sweep in and clear them out.
Because he went straight after Bondo after that and did a big old smoke screen as Sugar Rush came in and just tackled his ass.
Mm-hmm. And just knocked him down, and then it was just a case of...
Put him in a Fujiwara armbar.
Yeah. Going back to wrestling stuff. And then there was Tokage, who was starting to panic because she was like, they weren't expecting Bakugo to be a team player. And then Bakugo just comes up right in front of her.
Oh, no, it was... Well, you're skipping a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
He got attacked by... what's his face? The Mantis guy.
Kamakiri.
Got attacked by him. And him and Sarah took him down. And Sarah was doing a lot of internal...
Oh, that's right.
You can't
I forgot about Sarah. Yeah.
Because Sarah, we don't get a whole lot from all the time, and he actually got a little bit of spark there because he never was part of the remedial class. He's showing how smart he is in this episode.
He's showing that while his quirk has some versatility, but isn't as powerful as everyone else's, to the point you may wonder, it's like, why did he make it to the hero course? Because he's actually pretty smart. Because he figured out how Tokage's quirk operated. And so he was going around noticing that over time the pieces that she detached stopped moving, and then she regrew those pieces. So all he did was just start taping down the pieces so that they couldn't fly close.
Well, he also put together that they mentioned she could do up to 50, and then Jiro said she was hearing less and less as the match
he
would go.
realized,
he's like, okay, so they're having to come back to her so she can reset the timer, and that she probably can't keep regrowing forever, so she would have to bring them back.
And so that's why he started taping
Yajirozu.
Yeah, it's like there's only so much you can do before you're tapping your body's energy.
He's like taping down some that are still moving. One, to help Jiro, and two, to just keep him from being able to go back to her, so she has to be at like half power.
And then he taped. Well, and
we forgot to mention.
We forgot to mention that when Bakugo was planning with his teams, he gave each of them like a grenade
that he probably.
It's like a support item.
Yeah, it's one of his support items
that he probably just fills with some of his nitroglycerin sweat,
and has some kind of accelerant in it.
Yep, and basically just told them to use these at opportune moments.
They're not a big, but they'll get the job done.
Yeah, and so he tapes one of those grenades to one of Tokage's pieces
that were floating back to her.
As she was bringing it back, she spotted it, quickly got out of the way of the explosion. She was like, "That was too close." And then Bakugo's just like, "Hi," and literally like Kamehameha right in her face, and just completely KO'd her. And yeah, it was a flawless victory. And as we found out from Vlad King afterwards, it took less than 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And there was a bit of the humor earlier on in the episode as Vlad King is talking up his class, and they again call him on the biased commentary, and Aizawa just shows up and is just like, stop complaining about it.
It's like, would you do this if this was a real thing that happened? Like,
it's just push aside the distractions, kind of thing.
He says, you doing this and being the way it is right now, you're making me look bad, and then in turn making me look worse than Vlad. Because all you're doing is complaining, because Class 1B is not complaining, they're strategizing.
Yeah, it's just like... and yeah, after the match, we got some stuff. 1A's team got a bunch of praise from everyone. Bakugo, got some praise for actually being a team player and everything. And 1B's team gets chastised by Vlad King. It's like, you came up with a good plan, but you were too focused on that plan instead of being more flexible. And Tokage was really sort of bummed about the whole thing.
You gotta remember, Monoma was losing his mind.
Yeah, Monoma's eye was like twitching as he saw that Bakugo had started maturing, and it's like they were so focused on their own growth that they all seemed to assume that 1A hadn't been making major strides
because they were still doing like strategies and stuff, that thinking that they were the same as they were in like the sport, even back to the sports festival.
It's just like, yeah, you guys have been training hard, but don't assume that 1A hasn't been doing the same, or that they haven't had to step up their game because of all the disasters they've been a part of.
They fought true to life villains, big hero villain groups that the hero society is trying to take out.
Monoma keeps calling them like troublemakers. It's like, they're not the ones making the trouble. The trouble is just finding them.
Right?
But yeah, and we saw that Monoma, he's always a large ham, about things, but he's supportive of his classmates,
which is good. I like that part of his character.
It rounds out his character. It's like he's a good classmate and everything to have. It's just he is so focused on this rivalry with 1A. So as soon as 1A steps into the picture, he immediately becomes, we have to surpass them in all possible ways, kind of thing. We need to prove we're the superior class. And the rest of 1B is just like, dude, let it go.
I honestly think he's doing it for mind games.
Maybe, but I think that's just genuinely how his brain is somewhat wired.
I don't know. He's got to have an ulterior motive, because he only does it in front of Class 1A when they're paying attention to him, doing it to try to kind of put that little doubt in their head or demoralize them in some way.
I don't doubt that he is also trying to weaponize it, but I don't think it is strictly for mind games. I think he is wired that way, but he is also smart enough to try to weaponize it.
Also, we see that episode 99, he has like a real crazed look on his face.
Oh yeah, I'm assuming that's because he's about to do something with his copy power, or maybe it's like he's got,
we all
or
think...
maybe it's a case of somebody's just been hit with the brainwashing from Shinso, and he's just like, haha, I have you in my sights, kind of thing.
See, because this brainwashing would be good to stop him, so he could take like a copy of Quirk.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't count him out at all during
no,
this next one.
Definitely not.
So he could copy power
But
from
he's
either
also
teammates or...
recognized that he may have problems copying Deku's quirk.
I wonder why he thinks that.
I don't know.
I know why he can't.
Yeah,
We saw that in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Because we're assuming that his copy quirk thing works very much like Nine's power theft thing, that he can only hold so many things at a time.
Well, I mean, we already know you can only do, at the time of the sports festival, 3.
This is true. He could have stepped up. He could have developed his powers so that he can now copy more. But
so he's
it's one for all.
In theory, he could be in danger, too, of losing his quirk to them stealing it.
That's the League of Villains, if they figure out his quirk, that's
especially
that's
brainwashing, too.
Shinso would be in a lot of trouble, but Monoma's quirk is one that they would probably want to get their hands on too.
Oh yeah. The tail splitter ability too.
Yeah, there's
you put that together with the make blades out of anything or out of your body anywhere. Just have this tiny little pieces slide up,
and then you have so many like these
flat
whirling blades going everywhere.
Get the whirlwind ability too.
I mean, when you stop and think about what the League of Villains can do with like the Nomus and everything, it becomes terrifying. I mean, especially as they're making more and more high-end ones. You know they're going to make more high-end ones, like the one that Endeavor fought. Endeavor and Hawks fought.
Do you think Dabi is truly a villain?
Too soon to tell. I think it's just a lot of daddy issues. I
think
because we're both convinced that it's Toya.
Oh yeah, my big thing about it is we hadn't seen any redeeming qualities from any of the villains in a sense of why they're doing what they're doing, aside from him, where he was asked if he's like, you remember that person? He had a family, he had kids and everything. He's like, oh yeah, he's probably dead. And he's like, do you ever think of them or their family?
Yeah,
all the
time.
That scene where he's at the dock, he's just like every night, every day, all day.
The only sort of redeeming,
and then he's like kind of like bled between his stitches.
Yeah, the only redeeming quality I really noticed among the League of Villains, specifically Shigaraki's group within the League of Villains, is that they have developed a very close bond with one another.
Yeah,
it's like they do care about one another and they do protect each other in that respect. There's no other redeeming qualities there.
Like we haven't seen why, except for twice.
Yeah.
Why kind of things go.
Yeah, it's like you can sympathize there. It's just like he had a really traumatic experience that left him broken.
He broke himself.
Yeah, it was entirely self-inflicted, but you kind of feel sorry for him. But then he found like a new group that actually that sort of welcomes him.
Toga's background, what school she went to, what drove her to do what she's doing. It can't just be like one day I just all of a sudden, oh, yep, I want to be like Stain. It has to be something ticking in that direction to even bring you that far.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up during the discussion, and we've sort of talked about it before, but it's like the character designs in My Hero. There are little subtle things that you don't necessarily pick up on right away, but it's like, I don't know how I didn't sort of notice it before, but with Jiro, the little highlights in her hair are shaped like sound waves. And I'm just like,
Sero's hair, like
Sero's hair, the bangs in front are shaped like the tape cutter on a tape dispenser,
or a cut piece of tape, because the bottom part of his mask is the cutter part. This could be the piece of tape that already got cut off.
There you go. Bakugo's hair just sort of going everywhere.
Explosion.
It's like an explosion.
That's kind of why he has the fins on his mask, to make it like flowing explosion.
Yep. And well, those fins aren't on his mask; they're on the. They are. That's right. He just pulled it back.
Pulled it down.
That's
yeah.
right. there's like a lot of those little touches. For the ones that aren't the more outlandish sort of character designs, like Asui, Froppy. Everything about her is like frog.
She frog.
But the more subtle ones, the little touches and stuff like that. The little, like you pointed out with Mushroom Girl, that her eyes are shaped like shiitake mushrooms. I don't know what a shiitake mushroom looks like, so I'm accepting that you're correct about that. And all those sorts of things. It's like
Sarah's even his elbows and stuff. You've got the wheels.
Yeah, but that's just like part of his quirk in general, sort of thing.
Also his shoulder pads.
The shoulder pads are shaped like tape dispensers also. But yeah, it's like once you've accepted you're going to become a hero, and you're going to lean into the stylistic things like that. Like with Mineta, his has a little grape stem on the
his
top.
His name was Grape Juice. That's his hero name.
I know, but I'm just like, he literally just designed part of his costume to have like that little like grape stem poking out of the top of his head.
What's with the big baby diaper though? I don't get it.
I'm not sure what
a bowl.
Maybe
it's a bowl to hold the grapes.
Yep.
A bowl of grapes. That's his outfit.
It's like with Bakugo, how his costume has like the grenade designs to go along with all the explosions and everything.
I mean, also his support gear on his hands to make it so he can store that excess sweat. That's another thing he also mentioned during the fight. He's like, it took him a while to get used to the cold because he's so used to just burning up in his suit and producing that sweat to make the explosions.
But because it's colder out, it regulates his body temperature more.
So he had to have.
That's a good point. I forgot. See, and it's little subtle things like that is.
That's why they were mentioning all their winter outfits.
Mm-hmm,
not only because it's cold, but for him especially because he needs to have that so he can sweat more.
Mm-hmm. It's like why not just wear that sort of stuff in the summertime? Also, you'll sweat even more. But
probably overheat.
That's true. It's like with Shoto. It's like he can use his. He can use just his ice quirk, but then his body will start to frost over, so he needs to use his fire quirk as well, to the fire half of his quirk to help regulate his body temperature, and vice versa. You crank up the heat too much, you start to overheat. It's something similar pops up in Fire Force, which I've been watching with Zeke. There is a character who is one of the many pyrokinetics in the series, but in part of his backstory, he was fighting up an infernal that was like a really powerful one, and he had to crank his power up past his limits.
Oh, you just got to those episodes? The one fourth?
No, this is like with the 7th in the traditionalist neighborhood. The lieutenant for the guy with the two types of powers. The one wearing all the bandages. You may not.
No, he was from the 4th.
Was he from? Was that the 4th division? I thought they were 7th.
The one where it looks more Japan.
Yeah.
If
that is 4th, then I'm misremembering. But but that character, it's like he overheated himself, and so now he basically can't use his power anymore,
or else he'll decay more.
He'll start burning up even faster. It's like they put in those sorts of limits. It's like, you can power up, but you run the risk of literally burning yourself out. That was a problem All Might had after he got injured by All For One. He couldn't keep up One For All permanently, and he started getting less and less time that he could remain active before he'd.
Was it 7th?
But
just see where Benimaru is.
Benimaru. Yeah, that's
the leader of that one.
Yep. But yeah, I like that they're sort of working in that they are.
No, you're right. It's 7.
Okay, that's what I thought. But it's like they put in these limitations with everything, and the little quirks of character designs, like the shape of characters' eyes or their hair or other things like that. It's all stuff that isn't like part of costumes, because costumes are something that they can specifically try to do to emphasize things. But something like the way the highlight sort of shows up in a character's hair from just like light hitting it, being shaped like a waveform is something completely different. It was a good episode. Definitely shows how far Bakugo has come, and that he's now just as he told Deku, it's just sort of like, I'm pulling ahead. I'm moving so fast you won't be able to keep up. And
yes, I will. Shut up, nerd.
and Deku's just sort of like, I take that as a challenge, sir.
Oh, I'll catch up. Shut it, nerd.
Yeah. Well, I like that even when Deku tried to like praise him, he's like, "Get out of my way!" He's like, "I'm not even in front of you." It's just sort of like Bakugo's just like force of habit.
Oh, he was like, "No, you're in my way of becoming number one here. Mm-hmm. Get out of my way."
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Bingecat?
And a yawn. He's just like, "You guys are being loud. I'm trying to sleep."
You're a cat. You sleep all the time anyway.
He's like, "Shut up." But yeah, it was a good episode. Next two are going to be interesting to see how 1B makes use of Shinso and how they try to deal with Deku, because his team doesn't really have a whole lot of great fighters. Deku is like the only heavy hitter, because he's got Mineta, who has
pop off.
They've got Pinky with the acid.
They've got acid. They've got stuck. They've got anti-gravity,
and that's it. It's like Deku is, but Deku. But Deku also realizes that he's going to be the target, so he's basically offering himself up as bait.
And we're going to see how that goes.
Especially because they're at a numerical disadvantage already against a team that already pretty much knows what they can do. They don't know necessarily that Deku's quirk is acting up in a way, and we don't know that 1A necessarily recognizes what 1B's quirks are. They know Monoma's copy ability. They know Shinso's brainwashing ability.
The other three?
There was the girl on the team. It just said her quirk was size, which says to me some sort of size changing quirk.
Can she change? The question is, can she change herself or other things?
That's the only thing we don't know. We have the guy with the scouter over his eye, and his quirk was listed as twin impact, but don't really know what that means.
I wonder if he can launch himself like a missile. I couldn't really tell what he could do in the girl with the.
Oh, and Poltergeist. That's right. Forgot about her. I was like, "There's somebody that I'm forgetting. Who is it?" It was Poltergeist.
Well, that's her.
Well, that's where her quirk is, and from that, I'm assuming that her quirk allows her to possess objects in some way. That's like
they have
I said,
a lot of
I'm
possession
assuming.
on their team. You can possess other people's abilities, possess them by brainwashing, and possibly possess other objects.
But Shinso also knows that his quirk doesn't work on Deku.
Well, I mean,
or at least that Deku has broken out of the brain.
The
only one that can break out of his brainwashing. That may be why Monoma is just sort of like, I may not be able to copy his ability, because he recognizes if he can break out of one ability, then I may not be able to use mine on him.
Which is pretty interesting, kind of a thought.
Monoma is not an idiot. He's just obsessed with proving that his class is superior to 1A.
Well, he does have a quirk that lends himself to be powerful.
Yes.
Like, very powerful.
In the right circumstances.
Of course. Well, you also...
I'm assuming also there's a time limit to how long he can copy their abilities.
I don't know. He did touch in the last episode we saw, not the one we most recently. He touched the shoulder... Oh, not him. Kaminari touched his shoulder.
Yeah, I saw that. So he might already have that Kaminari's ability.
I don't know if he has to touch them or they can touch him, or how the touching needs to work.
During the sports festival, he had to touch them. He may have evolved his quirk, so now it's just any sort of contact.
But it wasn't skin contact either. It was on his shoulder, so we don't know. I was just saying, just in case, maybe he has the hardening ability. We don't know.
Yeah.
But he could have prepared so hard for this. Just be like, all right, match is coming up. Yo, Class 1B, gather around. Let's see what we can do.
Huddle up. And I'm assuming I'm assuming also that he has control over which quirks he can copy.
Tail Splitter. If he takes Tail Splitter, he could get those pieces off to touch anybody around and get that quirk.
But then he would only be able to, if he still only has 3, he can only copy 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's true, but
or he could use
it's like I said,
or he could replace Tail Splitter with the last one he picks.
But then he would have to reassemble himself before he could really undo the Tail Splitter. Otherwise, I'm assuming he won't have any control over those pieces, and then he's just.
Yeah, that's all. He only used like 2 or 3.
Yeah,
pieces.
but then he's missing chunks of his body and might start bleeding out.
Don't know how that quirk works.
Exactly. I mean, I'm assuming the reason she doesn't start bleeding out and everything is because that's just a necessary secondary part of her quirk. But if her quirk were to be taken away from her when she's in pieces, like if she were hit with one of those anti-quirk bullets,
she'd be dead.
She'd probably die. But let's say it was just like one hand that got detached and then she gets shot. Does she start bleeding from the stump? There's a lot of... Or
could she break herself apart before the bullet hits?
I mean, if she has enough forewarning.
Yeah.
It's like, again, comparing her quirk somewhat to Buggy the Clown's quirk in One Piece. His quirk essentially made him immune to sword damage. Because he could literally just chop himself to he could split himself to pieces from it. And then just reassemble himself.
We also got thoughts. He could have walked around and touched anybody from like 1A and try to grab their powers.
This is true.
Or they were like, "Yo, get the fuck away from me! Don't touch me! Take my power."
What if he's taken Kendo's power from all the times that she's like judo chopped him?
She judo chops him on flesh to flesh.
Exactly. So it's like the first time somebody tries to attack him, and suddenly big fist.
I mean, I could see that happening. Where like Deku's going for like an attack and just catches it. He's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
He's literally the gamble on their team. He's literally we don't know
the wild card. He is the wild card
in general. He could do or probably do
depending on how many quirks he can copy now. If it's more than 3, you have to throw all your strategizing out the window. Especially if there's no time limit. I'm assuming there is a time limit thing to it. And the Binge Cat has fallen asleep. I just heard that little snore there. But, it was a good episode. So we'll be back in 2 weeks for more My Hero. Got to start uploading the One Piece episodes that we've done.
One Piece?
Not One Piece. One Punch Man. Because I've been talking about One Piece. That's why my brain went there first by mistake.
One Punch Piece Man.
Somebody has probably already written that fanfic.
Someone did a cosplay that combined Spider-Man with Saitama.
Of course they did. Well, we'll talk about that off mic. I think that about wraps things up. Looking forward to seeing where things are going to go. Monoma's the wild card in this. But that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Herocast. So for Sam, I am Jay. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Later.
Plus Ultra!
Thanks for listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast. Be sure to check out our library of past podcasts via CKCC Radio or via our YouTube channel and give us a like and subscribe. We'll see you after our next binge.